Hey everyone, I hope you guys are doing well. So today we're going to talk about mental and physical survival. So mental and physical survival are not the most glamorous or exciting things to talk about in terms of like survival and survival skills. We're going to start to get into some of the other stuff in the next couple of weeks. But tonight I just want to kind of talk about this a little bit because this is going to be the basis of, being an actual survivor. How to, kind of assess where you are, where you want to be, and what you need to do to get there. So again, really the first step in mental and physical survival is kind of knowing yourself and also being honest with yourself, about where you are mentally, where you need to be, where you are physically and health-wise, and where you want to be. And so the first thing, let's talk about physical preparation. I think that's a little bit easier than like mental preparation and mental state. But with that, you should know your strengths, your weaknesses, and your limits. It's definitely important to know where your strengths are, but I think it's even more important to know where your weaknesses and your limits are as well. Right? Because if you're in a survival situation and you can't lift, a 100-pound box up, and you try and do it anyway, and you hurt yourself, now you're in a survival situation. You tried to lift a box that you knew you couldn't, and now you're injured. So now you have an additional injury to deal with, even though you knew you couldn't lift the box in the first place. So, if you knew that limit and you were honest with yourself about that limit, it probably would have, made the situation a little bit better. And so, in survival situations, it's not about being the strongest person or the fastest person. It's generally more about endurance and stamina, and in a lot of cases it's just simply being able to keep walking or keep swimming or just keep putting one foot in front of the other one, and that's really what's really going to help you out. So the other thing is that again, while you can, it's important to do these things now. So go to the doctor, go to the dentist, develop a fitness plan. So if you're not regularly going to the doctor, I know many of you are young college students, you should still regularly go see a doctor, have a checkup, once a year, maybe every other year. Learn your body, learn about your health, know if you have any underlying, physical or, health issues, and do what you can to correct them. And if it's not something that can be corrected, how could you live your life in a way that, you're pretty much always prepared to, deal with it in the best way possible. All right, the next thing is the dentist, right? I hate going to the dentist, but I still force myself to go, and I often try and avoid it, but, I know it's important to go. But if you have, a tooth that's bothering you, get it taken care of today, right? Just get it taken care of, get it done with. I know it's not, the most painless thing to deal with, and I know it's not always the cheapest thing to deal with, but just get it taken care of, because imagine if society were to collapse tomorrow, and now you're dealing with a collapsed society and also a tooth that really hurts, and that tooth could also lead to an infection. And so like a not so fun fact is that like before we had dentists, early humans, many of them died from abscessed teeth, where you had a tooth and it got infected and then it abscessed and that led to an infection, and that infection went up to their brain. So take care of your teeth, because they could lead to some serious problems. And, it's definitely important to go to teeth, because like early humans didn't live anywhere near as long as us. So our teeth, evolutionary speaking, were not designed really to last more than like 30 years. So take care of your teeth as best you can, because hopefully we have long, healthy lives, and we need to make sure they last us. All right, the next thing is a fitness plan. So you should have some kind of fitness plan in your daily life. Like, what are you doing to remain active, to remain fit? And so you should be doing something every day. It doesn't have to be a lot, it doesn't have to be super intense, but it should be something. Start small. Find a program that works for you. Find something that you enjoy doing. And so, figure out again what in your fitness where you are and where you want to be. And so kind of, design a plan or come up with a plan or find a program that's going to help you get to where you want to be. And again, it's, this is a journey, so you don't have to be there all at once, right? If you're like, well, man, I'm totally out of shape, go for a walk every day, right? Just, one foot in front of the other. Because, again, in the survival situation, it's, often just, that stamina, that endurance to just keep going. So, you don't have to be the strongest or the fastest, but you have to be able to keep going. And so, find a plan that works for you and stick with it. Okay, so next let's talk about mental preparation. This one's, it's a little bit more difficult to deal with than just kind of physical stuff, because again, we have to know ourselves when we think about how we're going to prepare for different situations mentally. And so, people have different mental responses to survival situations. They could go from panic to depression to hyperactivity to guilt to anger to fear. Some people even act suicidal in these different situations. And so when there's, some kind of situation that's, going to occur, whether it's, some kind of disasters, in Florida we have hurricanes, in the north we have blizzards, right? So this, things we can kind of see coming. People can react in different ways. And there's typically four stages of psychological progression. Sorry about that. Just my brain stopped working for a second. So we have 4 stages of psychological progression. And so the first stage is the pre-impact stage. So we could see something coming. So if we're watching the news, we could see a hurricane coming towards Florida, or we could watch a blizzard coming. Or in the early days when, the COVID-19 stuff was, going on, we could see that, right, it was starting to spread, it was starting to get bad, things were starting to shut down. And so how do people react? What do they do? And so some people will, calmly and appropriately react to these situations. They will get their supplies together. Maybe they probably had some of the stuff ready to go already. Some people totally ignore the situation. They pretend it's not occurring, and then they will just basically have to react to it and survive later from, their lack of prepared situation, or, hopefully things worked out in their favor. And then other people just totally go crazy and overreact. And I think we really saw all of those stages and, examples of people in the, the COVID response. Some people just totally ignored it, said it wasn't real, they didn't have to worry about it. And other people went out and they bought all of the toilet paper. And so I like to imagine what those people are doing with all that toilet paper now. And I know there were shortages of toilet papers in the grocery store, but I think people just, totally overreacted because, at some point in the future, toilet paper was going to return to the grocery stores, but people just continued to buy and buy and buy all of this toilet paper. So that's the pre-impact stage. So next is the actual impact stage. So this is when, the situation occurs. So it could be the hurricane is outside, the blizzard is outside, people are getting sick in the streets from a pandemic, right? That's the actual impact stage. And, a small percentage of the population, 10 to 23%, are going to just, remain calm. They're going to act appropriately. The majority of the population, though, is going to kind of act stunned or bewildered. They're not really going to know what to do. And then you're going to have another small percentage of people. And these are the people who are going to act with, extreme or crazy or irrational behavior. And so you really have to watch out for those people, because they can be a danger not only to themselves, but also other people. So then after the impact stage, we have what's known as the recoil stage. And so this is the stage when life is kind of going back to normal. And it's basically just kind of everything kind of goes back to normal in the recoil stage. So it's not, a real crazy stage, but the next one is actually kind of weird. This is the post-trauma stage. And so now this is life has gone back to normal, but people aren't normal because they've gone through this trauma. And so, things are normal, but life just doesn't feel right. And so, you may experience feelings of guilt, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and another one called adrenal fatigue. And so I'll give you a great example from my life with this example. So Hurricane Irma. If you've been in Florida for a couple of years, especially Southwest Florida, you remember dealing with Hurricane Irma. And I remember in the pre-impact stage, right? So we've watched Hurricane Irma coming across the Atlantic Ocean, and it had like record-breaking winds, and it was coming from Florida, and it's going to hit Miami. Is it going to hook around? What is it going to do? And so we were just watching it for days and days and days. And like, people go crazy. You couldn't buy gasoline, right? The stores were all ran out of gas. People were trying to evacuate Florida. They couldn't get gas. They couldn't get groceries. You couldn't buy anything. Stores were like preemptively shutting down because Hurricane Irma was coming. So that was the pre-impact stage. And so, you know, what I did prior to Hurricane Irma getting here is I put gas in my wife's car, my car. I put up my hurricane shutters. I cleaned out my garage so I could fit both cars in the garage. And I bought a few extra gallons of gasoline. And then one of the things that my wife and I decided that we should probably do is, because they had said that, you know, where we lived, you know, they weren't going to order an evacuation of where we lived. We have a fairly new house. It's built to withstand hurricane winds of 160 mile an hour winds, or 165, whatever the newest code is. And so they also put out the storm surge maps for where we are, and it said that, you know, worst case scenario, water's going to be 3 feet above the road. And I looked at the map of where my house was, and I saw that my house is built 3 feet above the road, and I said, okay, so worst case scenario, the water is right outside my front door, but it's probably not going to come into my house. And my house will withstand the wind. So we said we're good. But we said, just in case, let's pack one of the cars to go. And so at the time I had a Subaru Outback, and so we actually turned the car around in the garage, and we didn't like kind of bury it and stuff, so we were able to easily get that car out. We packed it up with, you know, some food, some supplies. I had like a luggage rack for the back of it, and I put, you know, the extra gas and a cooler, you know, water and stuff. So the car was basically ready to go. We had supplies for our pets and everything else. And it was actually the morning before Hurricane Irma hit. At about noon, they ordered you know, an evacuation of my neighborhood. And so fortunately we had everything ready to go, and so my wife and I jumped in the car, and we gathered up our pets, my stepson, and we headed out of Florida. And the interesting thing is that, you know, a lot of people got stuck in traffic for hours and hours and hours, but we waited till they actually told us to evacuate, and we actually got out of the entire state of Florida in 6.5 hours. And so if you know, leaving Southwest Florida to get to Georgia, it's, you know, 6.5 hours on a good day. So we barely had any traffic. We were able to buy some gas in Winter Haven outside of Orlando. And then we also found some gas in Georgia, and we made our way up to the Carolinas. We got a hotel room. I don't think that we paid a fair price for the hotel room, but most of the hotels were booked, and we had some pets with us. And so, you know, kind of take what you can get. So that was our impact stage. That's when the hurricane hit. You know, when we sat in the hotel room, and I remember just kind of like staring at my phone or refreshing my phone every day and just kind of watching, you know, with the hurricanes getting closer and getting closer and getting closer. And then I kind of went over my house. I'm like, you know, trying to find information if my house is still there. And so that was our impact stage. You know, and we had this, you know, crazy journey getting back into Florida. And then there was the recoil stage, basically, where, you know, life is getting back to normal. And so this was, you know, us coming back to Florida, and we got back to our house. And, you know, there was a little damage to my house, but for the most part, you know, half a day of repairs. And I was, you know, back in business at my house. We even had power when we got home. And so I couldn't quite figure it out until I read about it later, but when we had the post-trauma stage in our lives, right, we got home and school had not started back up yet. FGC was closed for, I think, about 2 weeks after the hurricane. But I got my yard cleaned up, I got my house cleaned up, and everything should have been good. I mean, I had power, I had internet, I had air conditioning, I had everything I needed in my house. I even had the supplies that I needed, so we had plenty of food. But I just didn't feel right. I was always tired. I was just kind of felt like exhausted. And even though like I wasn't really working, I was getting plenty of sleep. And but I found out about this thing called adrenal fatigue. And so with adrenal fatigue, it's just like that whole time that like I was worrying about the hurricane, and then I was getting the car ready to go, and then we left and we drove, and then I was there and I was worried about the hurricane, and then I was getting back and I was worried about my house, and I was worried about getting my family home safely. Like I was just worrying, and I was in this like mental state of just kind of go, go, go. And then finally I got home and things were back to normal, and just like my adrenaline gland was like worn out. And so it actually takes a couple of weeks for your body to kind of recover from something like that. So after something like that, it's totally normal to feel weird. And another example that a lot of people went through is like in the early days of COVID, when like things were starting to get weird and starting to get bad. We worried about food in the grocery stores, and we worried who's going to get sick and what's going to happen. And so it was kind of like this like slow burn, pre-impact stage. And so we were just kind of in that mental state for so long. We were worried about everything for so long, and our jobs and everything, that just like we were just worn out. So that's some of the things that we deal with mentally, and kind of how it goes through the different mental stages. Some things that could make our mental state even worse are what's known as aggregating factors. And so these can be fatigue, hunger, thirst, being hot, being cold, being wet, being uncomfortable. And so one of the things that we'll talk about in in future videos in this class is how you can deal with these things. So throw a snack, throw an extra bottle of water, a sweatshirt, a rain jacket, some extra clothes in your bag, in your car. And so just having these things available, right? So if a situation does arise where, you end up getting wet, you don't have to wear a wet shirt all the time because you have an extra shirt. If you get hungry and you forget your lunch, you have a granola bar in your backpack. And so it's going to help you through your day. It's going to help your mental state. And so we'll talk about how to kind of be prepared and deal with these things in future videos. All right, so some coping strategies that are going to help us as well. Training, motivation, attachments, hope, acceptance, helping, remaining active, and also monitoring your info. So let's talk about training for a second. So if you have to work on, different types of equipment, or if you have, like a survival kit or whatever, have you practiced with everything in there? Do you know how to use it? And a real great practical example is knowing how to change your tire on your car. So you may think, okay, well, I've got a spare tire in my car. If I get a flat tire, I'll just deal with it. But do you actually know where the jack is? Do you know if your spare tire has air in it? Have you practiced changing the tire on your car? Do you know how to do this? And so if you practice this in a survival situation, you're not going to have to worry about it because you know how to do it, and you know that you know how to do it, and that's going to make you feel more confident. So this last summer, I went on a road trip with my family, and I'll show my vehicle in one of the future videos, but one of the things I didn't initially have with my vehicle was a functioning spare tire. So my vehicle's got larger tires, and so the initial spare tire that came with the vehicle didn't really work. And so I worked to get a spare tire that actually worked, and then a jack that would lift my vehicle off the ground. And so that and I practiced with all this stuff, and like I planned it out, and so like I know that if I got a flat tire on this trip, that I know that I could get the vehicle high enough off the ground that I can get one of the tires off. I have a spare tire that's going to work, and it's not going to be a donut, and I could continue on my trip. And then if all else fails, I have a tire repair kit that I know how to use, and I have an air compressor that I carry in my vehicle. And so, I'm good, right? I don't have to worry about, if I get a flat tire, because it's something I know that I can deal with. And so that's training. Next is like motivation and attachment. So if you're in a survival situation, what's your motivation to get home? What's your motivation to survive? So, right, it could be, it could be your partner, it could be your kids, it could be your pets. And I think pets are a really great motivator because you know that your pet's not going to understand why you never came home. And so if you're in a survival situation, think about your cat or your dog just wondering whatever happened to you. And I know I'm a big animal lover, so I know that's kind of like what would actually get me home, aside from my family. But, definitely think about, what are your motivating factors? What are your attachments that you want to get home to? So focus on them, don't focus on the negatives. Hope is really important, right? So it's always important to remain hopeful. It's important to have a positive attitude, and that's always going to spread to others, especially in a group situation. The opposite's also going to be true, right? So don't be, super negative or pessimistic, because that will also easily spread to the group. Helping. So if you're in a situation, right, always take care of yourself first, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't effectively help other people. But take care of yourself first, and then, help other people, get through whatever they need help with. Again, this is going to help the group. It's going to keep you active, and it's also going to, help your mental state, because you're going to feel good about what you're doing, and you know that you're positively contributing to the situation. Remaining active, right? So in addition to like helping people, but if you're stuck in a situation for a long time, it's important to remain active. And so, maybe you're stuck in your house and there's a blizzard, what are you going to do besides sit on the couch? If there's a hurricane, you're stuck inside your house, what can you do inside your house to actually just move around, get a little bit of exercise? I know in the early days of COVID, right, a lot of people just, we were quarantined, we were stuck at home, we couldn't go anywhere. So a lot of people went for walks, right? We went outside, we walked around, we felt better because we were moving around. The last thing in this category I want to talk about is like monitoring the info that kind of goes into your body. So when we turn on the TV or we turn on our phones or our laptops, we get blasted with, we get news, we get real news, we get fake news, we get social media, we get memes, we get all kinds of information, we get political ads, a lot of it's biased. And so sometimes it's important to really kind of just take a step back from all of that and, turn it off if you need to. Take a break, because really that stuff can get to you, especially in a bad situation, because like, I don't know how old most of you are, but if you're the typical college age student and you probably weren't alive during 9/11, but it was a weird thing, during 9/11, because people just watched the news like zombies. Like they just sat and like watched the news for like days. They would come home and they would turn the news on. And the news never really said anything new, but they just kept watching it. And so it's, it's a weird phenomenon in like disaster situations and stuff like that. So again, it's important to kind of, turn that faucet off to monitor what goes in. And, and also, look up where this information is coming from. Make sure it's the actual information you want to be exposing yourself to. All right, so some things that I do personally. So like, just like you, I've gone through the same weirdness of like the last 6 months of dealing with like the COVID-19. Right, I was initially cooped up in my house. I was worried about it. I was worried about my health. I was worried about my family. I was worried about my parents. I didn't visit my parents a whole lot while they were here last winter. Especially like once like the COVID stuff started, because like I was worried for them. Like my dad's older, he's got respiratory issues, so I was worried about their health. And then on top of all this, right, I still work, right, I work for the university, and so it's a crazy time for faculty members, because we had our whole semester lined up to be in person, and then now we have to do everything online, right, which is crazy. And then over the summer, right, whether we taught or whatever we did over the summer, right, everything had to be online again, and we were really hoping for this fall to be back. And so, now we're sort of back and sort of not back. And so, most versions of my class, if I have an in-class component, I have to have an online version of it. And if somebody gets sick or they have to be quarantined, I have to have an alternate assignment ready for them. And so it really feels like every class is like 3 classes. And so honestly, when you're talking to professors, most of us are really burned out at this point in the semester. So just like you guys, we're still struggling with, all the same stuff you're doing. And at the same time, I'm also working on my doctorate degree. I was actually hoping to graduate in May, but it's, pushed back at least a year because, again, just like you guys, I'm dealing with, all the same COVID nonsense. And so it's not easy for, everybody. So the, how do we mentally cope? Well, the first thing, right? Make a schedule for yourself. And so every day, try and get up at the same time or pretty close to the same time. I have dogs, and so my dogs make that real easy because they do not distinguish weekdays from weekends. And so every day at 6 o'clock, they want breakfast, and so they get up and start, making noise and whatnot. So try and get up every day at the same time. Try and go to bed at the same time. Especially, you don't want to get in this situation where, some days you stay up to like 4 in the morning, and then the next day you have to go to bed at 8 o'clock, right? Because it doesn't, it's not great for your mental or physical health. So try and, get up and go to bed at the same time every day. I like to start my day with going on the treadmill. I usually either do a light jog or I'll just walk on the treadmill every morning for about 45 minutes. And one of the things I noticed is I wear my my fitness tracker here, and because I'm not teaching as much in person, I'm not walking as much every day. I'm taking like way less steps, and so because I'm not walking from my office to my classrooms, I'm not walking around in my classrooms. If you've taken a class with me in person, I'm quite animated. I'm always running around the classroom, and so I'm losing out on that physical activity, and so I try and make up for that by just extra 45 minutes to an hour on the treadmill every morning. So then during the day, right, schedule time for work, right? Just, even if you're working at home, be like, this is my time for work. And, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, crazy room around me with all these posters and stuff. I always call this my comic book room, and I really kind of converted it into an office during this time. So I have my own space where I could actually do some work, and I share it with my wife sometimes when she takes her classes in the evenings. But I call this my comic book room, but it's really, kind of now my office. And so, take time for work and use that time for work, right? So, I'm able to close the door and, kind of life is out there and work is in here. Same thing when I'm doing schoolwork, school is in here, life is out there. And so it's important to kind of make those distinctions. But then, when you're not working, you should not be working, right? So, and I know it's hard because I will tell you, I'm filming this video. It's 8:45 on a Friday, and I'm working. But I'm doing this for you guys. I'm, kind of at a crazy week, and so I'm just trying to get this done because I want to have it for you. So, but when you're not working, you're not working. So schedule time for exercising. And so, at the end of the day, what I like to do is I like to, I go out in my garage, and I do a good workout for like, again, an hour, hour and a half, and I take a shower, and that kind of signifies, like, that's the end of my day, right? And so after that, right, it's basically just kind of time for me. And so after that, I make some dinner, and hopefully after dinner, I have a little bit of time to just kind of, do some stuff for me. Like, I either like to play, Xbox, or I like to paint, or do models or something like that. So just, some things that, you enjoy doing. And then usually the last thing I do at the end of the day, before bed, my wife and I will watch, a show on Netflix or something. So just kind of, unplug from your phone, unplug from social media, the news, and just, watch a show or do whatever, and just kind of, chill out and relax before bed. All right. So that's me. And so those are kind of, my thoughts on mental and physical survival. And so you're going to make your own video this week, and your video does not have to be anywhere near as long as my video was. And so your video, 5 minutes or so, say hi to the class, introduce yourself again, because we're getting to know each other. Tell us what's new and exciting in your life. And I want you guys to do like an honest self-assessment. Like, where are you in terms of your mental and physical health, right? So where are you? where do you need / want to be, right, for, who you want to be, and what's your plan to get there? And then lastly, like, what's your daily schedule like, right? Do you have a schedule? Do you need to make a schedule? What needs to go on your schedule? So talk about those things, right? So say hi to your classmates, tell us what's new and exciting, and if you did anything cool this week, just tell us about it, right? Be like, hey, my name's Chad, and I did this really cool thing this week, and it has nothing to do with class, but I'm going to tell you about it because it's cool, because we're getting to know each other, and I think it's important to build community in this class. So even though it's online, I want us to know each other, I want us to feel connected to each other. So say hi to your classmates. Tell us where you are mentally and physically. Where do you want to be? What do you need to do to get there? And tell us about your schedule or your lack thereof and your need to make a schedule. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something, and I will talk to you next week. Thanks, and have a great week.